You know the old saying, no news is good news? Well, where COVID's concerned, why does it always seem like good news is actually bad news? Well, just as the Ingraham angle told you months ago, Biden has not one, but two running mates. Well, there's Kamala, right? We know about Kamala. And then there's COVID. The more active across the country they both are, the less old Joe has to campaign for himself. Now, the problem for the Biden COVID ticket is that the virus is slowing down, just like the presidential nominee himself. Come on, man. Well, in the last 2 weeks, the average number of daily COVID cases has plummeted 17%. Now, remember when we were first sold the lockdowns, it was all about saving the hospitals. It was very important to do that. Well, check out the latest data on COVID hospitalizations by age group from the CDC. It's down, down, down among all age groups. The hospitalizations and deaths in Arizona, in Texas, and in Florida also continue to decline sharply. This is all good news.
We continue to make progress in our fight against the China virus. New weekly cases have declined by 44% since July. Deaths declined by 20% compared to just last week. It's going down very rapidly.
Well, of course, Dr. Fauci could not let an upbeat view go without critique.
I have to disagree with that because if you look at the thing that you just mentioned, the statistics, Andrea, they're disturbing. You know, we're plateauing at around 40,000 cases a day, and the deaths are around 1,000.
Okay, again, we don't know how many of those 1,000 people died from COVID or with COVID. And Dr. Fauci didn't elaborate on that. But he did drop this bombshell.
If you're talking about getting back to a degree of normality which resembles where we were prior to COVID, it's going to be well into 2021, maybe even towards the end of 2021.
Okay, let me translate that for you. If Biden wins, you're going to be locked down on and off for most of the next year plus. Now, when Biden says he's going to listen to the doctors, it's not just Dr. Fauci. He also means epidemiologist Michael Osterholm from the University of Minnesota, who co-authored a piece several weeks ago urging that we, quote, commit to a more restrictive lockdown state by state for up to 6 weeks to crush the spread of the virus. Okay, the assumption being that doing so would stop the virus. Well, Dr. Osterholm is widely expected to be a likely candidate for a top job in the Biden administration. He genuinely seems to despise red state America, where people have just decided, you know, we understand the risk, but we have to move on with our lives. Think about this. In Kentucky and in lots of other states, they're now playing high school football and other sports. In Texas, they're going to in-person school 5 days a week. In Tennessee, people are scheduling weddings again. In Nebraska, they're now in stage 4, meaning it's back to normal. Kids are in school and learning. And that means, what does it mean? The media has to push the panic 24/7 all the more, especially about the schools. Now look at these scary headlines. Terrible, okay, about the teachers. Now, every loss of life is horrible. But as many, including the Washington Examiner, pointed out what these stories have in common, there is no evidence that any of the teachers mentioned contracted the virus while teaching. And if any one thing drives the left off the ledge, it's an indoor Trump rally where people are having fun, like last night's in Nevada.
The event was in defiance of state regulations. His leadership is killing people.
This is the White House telling us that they really have a callous disregard for human life.
He chose to show callous disregard in a reckless, selfish, irresponsible way.
It was an anti-science rally in Nevada.
As usual, they're all super spreaders of hypocrisy, always complaining about what regular Americans are doing to try to go on and live normal lives. You know, that whole pursuit of happiness thing? But they never complain, none of them, when hordes of looters race into stores, smash through cities, and basically do whatever they want, whenever they want to. And when they're in a desperate need of a blowout, well, of course, mask optional, of course. Well, although governors from Florida to South Dakota recognize that COVID is a horrible tragedy and that many might still die from it, they've taken shutdowns off the table. Well, they've done that because the societal cost to daily life, to everything about the lives we lead, is just too high. First, lockdowns don't work. Just look at the number of cases rising in Europe if you think they do work. Second, the damage they cause is catastrophic to our economy, our children's education, we're all seeing that, mental health, and our safety. By the way, they're also illegal. Today, a federal district judge in Pennsylvania issued a stinging 66-page rebuke, striking down Governor Tom Wolf's emergency COVID measures, citing multiple constitutional violations. Violated the First Amendment right of assembly, the Due Process Clause, and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Judge William Strickman wrote, "The response to a pandemic or emergency cannot be permitted to undermine the system of checks and balances. Here, defendants are statutorily permitted to act with little, if any, meaningful input from the legislature. The Constitution cannot accept the concept of a new normal where the basic liberties of a people can be subordinated to open-ended emergency mitigation measures." Now, it was a phenomenal ruling, and we've been telling you this for months. Our constitutional rights may not be indefinitely abridged by executive fiat, period. Now, I expect similar challenges to be launched in other blue states by businesses, parents, schools, and churches who at this point are just fed up with being shut down. But remember, for Biden's team, it will never be the right time to return power to the people. So I think of it this way. If you want to see your grandparents next year, if you want your son to have an actual graduation ceremony, now if you're a college student and you want to be on campus, if you want to watch March Madness, for goodness sakes, or you want to go to Easter Sunday services, you should not vote for Biden. Because if he wins, none of that is going to happen, not even in red states. The doctors will always tell him it's not safe until we have an effective vaccine that has been successfully administered to most Americans, whether we want it or not. The consequences will be disastrous. Millions of jobs will be permanently lost, and all of America will start looking like New York and California. Rolling blackouts, rolling rioters, and BLM radicals have the run of the streets, unchecked and unchallenged. The choice in November, day by day, could not be clearer. Liberty or lockdown, strength or submission, the Constitution or chaos. And that's the angle.